After a season of races ranging from somewhat mediocre to complete snooze fest so far, we might finally have something to look forward to. Although the Canadian Grand Prix has been a part of the calendar since 1967, we would only be introduced to a current track during the 1978 season. Before this, the tracks would alternate between the Mosport Park in Toronto and Circuit Mont Tremblant in Quebec. Originally called the Circuit Ile Notre Dame, it would be renamed to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in 1982 as a tribute to the Canadian racing driver Gilles Villeneuve, who would pass away earlier in the year. The weekend format includes 2 practice sessions on Friday, 1 more on Saturday, which will be followed by the qualifying on the same day, with the race falling on Sunday. So the normal format. This is the circuit layout and its DRS zones. The circuit does also contain this particular section, some of you might know, infamously named the Wall of Champions during the race held here in 1999. During the race, spectators would look on with shock as world champions Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher and Jenson Button would all crash on the exact same spot. Since then, the name was born. Now, there have been some changes made to the circuit for the race this year, so I'll run you through them. For starters, a couple have been made to the pit lane. The FIA have announced that the concrete walls of the pits will be extended by 106 meters, with the entrance being made narrower by 4.5. Some other parts of the circuit have also seen changes being made. The concrete wall and crash barrier in the exit of the first corner and at the walls of turn 7 have been realigned, and the exit lane at turn 3 has been made larger. The circuit has definitely solidified its place in the calendar, having been a host to a number of historic races. Some of them include the 2011 Canadian GP, where we would see Jenson Button come back from falling to last in the race to overtaking Sebastian Vettel in the final lap for the victory. This circuit would also be, for both Daniel Ricciardo and Lewis Hamilton, their maiden victories, with both of the races being equally exciting. Ricciardo would have an intense battle with Rosberg amidst the chaos resulting from the changing weather conditions. He would make the overtake 2 laps from the finish, securing his first win. In Hamilton's case, he would have to fend off both Alonso and Raikkonen, whilst also struggling with a gearbox issue before finally being able to secure the victory. This would mark an important moment in his life and that of the F1 itself, as this victory would mean that Hamilton had officially just become the first person of colour in the history of the sport to ever win a race. And with the weather forecast predicting a chance for rain halfway through the race, the stars really seem to be lining up for this to be the first standout of the year. But that's not even all. Something else to look forward to are some of the season's storylines so far. After a bunch of abysmal performances from Mercedes, Barcelona was a nice surprise. Qualifying P5 and P12, Hamilton and Russell would convert that into a P2 and P3 finish for a double Mercedes podium. So, did they just get lucky, or can we expect those performances moving forward as well? In Canada, we will see. Was that just a one-off, or does this mean that the Silver Arrows are actually back in the game? And assuming that it wasn't just a fluke, this would mean that we might finally have some competition on our hands. With Verstappen and Perez leading the season so far, and the guys at with Alonso at Aston Martin not too far behind, we have found ourselves a third contender. Welcome back, Mercedes. Making it a 6-horse race for the finish, and with 3 world champions in the equation, Canada is certainly building up to be quite exciting, unless of course Verstappen happens, in which case it's a 5-horse race for second place. In addition to this year also happens to be the first time in the history of the Canadian Grand Prix' infamous Wall of Champions, where none of the champions on the grid have fallen a victim to it in the past. So, will this be the year where we finally see the wall being defeated, or will it strike again and shake up the order. You might have also noticed that I have called it a 6-horse race and not 5, as in, I've included Stroll in the discussion. Well, this being his home Grand Prix, it's fitting to see that his past performances have actually been overwhelmingly positive. And with the Wall of Champions looming in the corner, after turn 13 to be exact, you never know. Lance Stroll might just end up being the second Canadian to ever win the race, right after Guy Villeneuve himself. Now with that wrapped up, here is my one bizarre prediction for the race. This race will see the resurgence of the Wall of Champions, as it will strike not once, not twice, but 3 times, mimicking the race in which it was originally created. The victims would be Verstappen, Alonso and Hamilton, with the wall taking out all the remaining champs at once. And with the track conditions worsening, Lance Stroll, being the wet weather genius himself, would overtake both Perez and Russell to secure his first win and to become the only other Canadian driver except Guy Villeneuve to ever win this race.